All right, folks, I'll try and make this one a short one today. Apparently, Israel is now launching trial balloons for the idea that the United States, or perhaps other Western countries, should just take the Palestinians off their hands so they don't have to deal with them anymore. I mean, it could not be more transparent, people. There is an article in the News Corp-owned Wall Street Journal, okay? This is a Murdoch paper. So a sister organization to Fox News Channel, which is Israel Central. And everyone who watches Fox News, and even people who don't like Fox, but are still in the mainstream of the American right, they're absolutely obsessed with doing whatever Israel wants. Well, now, as published in a Murdoch paper, at least two members of the Israeli Knesset, so part of the, people who are, in the Israeli government, but it's not Netanyahu himself, it's not a cabinet official, it's two people in the Knesset. They're saying, you know what, really the West, and specifically the United States, should just take all the Palestinians into their country, so that we don't have to deal with them, because, we in Israel, we've dealt with enough, and it's time that these Palestinians, be deported to the West, as opposed to the Jews during World War II who were deported to the East. It's quite ironic, the mirror images here. And so the Wall Street Journal article argues that, and of course it's paywalled because it's Wall Street Journal, so in order to know everything that's in it, you kind of have to rely on people who are Wall Street Journal subscribers to archive the page, which I haven't found an archive yet, so I'm just going to post the direct link to the article. But I saw other people talking about it, and you get the gist of it. I would have liked to have read the whole thing, because I'm sure it was comedy gold, but alas, I'm going to have to wait for the archive. I'm sure that if Israel wants to continue this messaging, they will start posting articles on websites that are not paywalled, so that more of us average Americans can be fed the gospel. So these two Israeli Knesset members, which the Knesset is the Israeli parliament, they argue that the West has taken in refugees from wars before. And look, Germany took 1.2 million random people from all around the world. Apparently, 1/4 of them claimed to be from Syria. The rest, who knows where. And as we all know, Germany's doing just fine with those 1.2 million refugees. That is, they've really enriched German society. The roving rape gangs are something that, Germany didn't even know they needed before the 1.2 million refugees showed up. And so since Germany alone took 1.2 million refugees, these Knesset members argue, well, there's only 2 million people total in Gaza. So, I mean, theoretically, you split them up amongst a bunch of Western countries, they could easily just unload all the Gazans into the West so that the U.S. has to deal with them. But, of course, we know the real reason that Israel would want us to do this is not because they care about these people so much. No. In fact, Israel would be happy to exterminate them with the single push of a button. But alas, I think not even Bibi thinks he can get away with a nuclear strike. And frankly, when it's in your own territory and it's territory that you want to terraform and settle your own people on, I don't think you want to turn it into a nuclear wasteland. He'd much rather an orderly evacuation of the population on so-called humanitarian grounds. He'd rather put them all on ships and send them across the Atlantic. And if Germany was able to take 1.2 million random people from around the world, well then surely the United States, which is much bigger than Germany, can accommodate these 2 million people from Gaza. And you see, it's really America's responsibility, because who else could do it? And these are innocent people, don't you know? And we wouldn't want them to be negatively affected by a war, and blah blah blah. I mean, the gaslighting. I'm getting tired of using that word. But what else do you call this? One day, most of the time they're telling you, Palestinians aren't people. folks in Gaza, when the civilians die, they don't matter. That's what they tell you when the Israelis kill them. But when the Israelis want to offload these people, they say, actually, they could make pretty good, upstanding members of society. They just happen to be caught, in this terrible war. They'd be much better off in someone else's country, and they'd really enrich your society, don't you know? Be interesting. I wonder if this narrative gets rolled out on a wider scale. Will your typical boomer cons who love Israel, will they start to question that a little bit if good old Israel wants to unload all the Palestinians into America? Now, I don't think that I think that 100% the boomer cons buy into the idea that the Palestinians are entirely savage, inhuman monsters. Every single one of them, down to the last man, woman, and child, the babies in the incubators, all that. I think that the boomer cons buy into that idea, that it's okay to kill them, they're animals. But you can't both buy into that and buy into the idea that the United States should just accept all the Palestinians as refugees. I mean, they would scoff. If you think that these people are monsters, you wouldn't think of them as refugees. You would think of them as enemy combatants that are, like the Argentine Nazis. The Nazis that fled to Argentina, and just sort of assimilated into Argentine society. We always think of the image of Hitler wearing a Hawaiian shirt out in the mountains. And everyone thinks, oh, that's terrible. That's something that shouldn't happen. All the Nazis that fled to Argentina should have stayed in Germany and been killed. And so this message is just going to, I think, really mess with Israel's narrative stateside. And maybe this isn't a trial balloon, and this really is just two off-base Knesset members who are proposing this, and that this does not have like a wide support, and that this is not going to turn into a broader campaign. If that's the case, okay, that makes sense. But if the broader Israeli government wants to push this idea, which I think it could be very beneficial to them if they could get it over, but I think it would destroy their existing narrative that they have built up in the U.S. media. You can't both dehumanize these people and then expect to find them a new home. Even though it would be in Israel's best interest to push these people out and send them anywhere to the west or wherever. And maybe this is them recognizing, we're not really going to be able to browbeat Egypt into accepting these people that Egypt neither wants, nor are they, Egyptians. And, three, Egypt doesn't want to assist Israel in their ethnic cleansing campaign so that Israel can just have Gaza for themselves. In every one of these scenarios, all these solutions that Israel comes up with, if you notice, Israel is always a universal winner, and literally everyone else suffers. It's always a win-lose. Israel never gives up anything in these proposed solutions. Either they kill all the Palestinians and all the Palestinians lose their lives. Okay, Israel gains Gaza. Okay, well then maybe we send all the Palestinians just south into Egypt. Well then Egypt gains 2 million homeless people. That's easy to deal with if you're Egypt, not a particularly rich country to begin with. You just get 2 million homeless people stuck in the desert, in the Sinai desert. Again, very interesting, reminiscent of the Jews under Moses. Except they're moving in the opposite direction. They're being pushed out of Israel and, into the Sinai desert towards Egypt, rather than being, leaving Egypt, crossing the Sinai desert. So in that case, everyone involved, except Israel, loses. Then we have the case here, presented here, of Israel deporting all the Palestinians to America. Okay, well, who loses there? Well, the Palestinians lose because they lose their homes, if they haven't been blown up already. They never get to go back to their homeland. And the Americans lose because they inherit 2 million homeless people who largely, a lot of them, hate America because America has enabled Israel and all this. So you're going to be importing people who have a real reason to hate America, because these are people who did not want to live in America, who wanted to live in their own country and were kicked out of their country, essentially kidnapped. if you think about it, because America enabled Israel to kick these people out, and then America accepts these people, they would feel like they are victims of kidnapping. And out of those 2 million, I would think, yeah, you're probably going to get a lot of domestic terrorism in the United States when you kidnap a population of 2 million people who don't want to live here, who want nothing more than just to go back to their own homes. So anyway, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.